First class business means that we literally cannot provide a second class service. Our clients won't accept it. You go into a fine dining establishment, right? Reservation oriented restaurant. You cannot provide the same level of service that McDonald's crappy kiosks provide. You have to provide service at a new level.
Welcome to the podcast about communication in business. I'm your host, George Torok. I'm also known as the speech coach for executives because I help business leaders deliver the intended message for greater success. My guest today is Jackson Calame. There's 3 facts that I think you should know about Jackson. 1, he is the founder of First Class Business. That's an agency that helps businesses, entrepreneurs, radically promote and grow their revenue. 2, he's been working in revenue and business development for about 15 years now. And 3, he is the host of Vision Pros Live podcasts, a podcast about setting your vision for entrepreneurs. Jackson, welcome to Your Intended Message.
George, thanks for having me today.
And Jackson, delighted to be talking with you. And I know you're enjoying, I'm guessing you're enjoying the weather there in San Antonio today. And here we are. I'm up here in Canada. And this is time that we put our snow tires on.
Oh, man, I like my hot weather. It's true. Well, we have great weather year round for those of us who love to be in the oven.
Jackson, let's talk about what First Class Business does for entrepreneurs that entrepreneurs fail to do for themselves. Where do you start?
Absolutely. We'll come out hitting hard and heavy. So our tagline on our website may make a lot of you laugh in an appreciative way. It says, "Hey, Batman, let us be your Alfred." Right? And what does that mean? That means, 1, we want to work with superheroes, people who are contenders in the market, not pretenders. We also want to come in and provide all of that back-end infrastructure that often gets overlooked. Maintaining the house, maintaining the balance, making sure that the schedules are operating efficiently, making sure Batman doesn't go out there and die when he's trying to save the world. There's so many things that need to be done in order to truly help somebody scale and have a proper balance and serve their market and be there for the family. And it's a lot. So many entrepreneurs either take that for granted on one side, and we've got to stop doing that if we really want to build. Or on the other side, if you're the Batman listening into that right now and you're like, oh my gosh, I need that, act on it. Start looking for who is going to help you build that really unsexy, boring thing that almost no podcasts talk about called infrastructure. It's really that simple.
Infrastructure. And so here we are. I'm Batman out there, and who knows who's going to show up today, whether it's the Joker or Bane, or maybe it's someone not quite so scary like Poison Ivy. In any case, I need to know that Alfred has got the infrastructure working behind me. What are the critical gears in the infrastructure?
Well, again, it's all that unsexy stuff you don't see in the movie. Like, how the heck does that giant house stay cleaned? And how do all the light bulbs get changed? How does the team operating behind Alfred, all the people you don't see that are taking care of that massive mansion, and Mr. Fox, who runs as the CEO of the bigger company, right? Fox's job is to scale the brand and to make sure there's a board and to make sure that the Wayne enterprises, if you will, are moving forward and expanding worldwide. Meanwhile, again, Alfred's running that house. We really get involved in both of those aspects of roles. And most, again, entrepreneurs don't want to hear this. You need a C level. You need to know what the C stands for. Chief. You need people who are able to make their own decisions. They don't need babysat. They don't need guided. They don't need told to shut up and dribble. They don't need told to do what they're like, oh, here's the metrics we want you. No. If they can't even figure out the important metrics, what are they doing in the chief level capacity? So I see a lot of people following the art of the boss babes out there or the marketing bros. And, one thing I think a lot of people don't realize is a lot of the boss babes out there have a husband who's actually paying the bills with his steady job and his corporate career. and they don't have the same types of fears and scary realities. Or I meet a lot of solopreneurs that if you get into the details of how much are they actually making, what does their balance really look like when they're not taking a fancy selfie on Instagram? We all know it. We talk about it. They don't have the same style of life oftentimes that they promote in the highlights of their existing day-to-day world. And because they're promoting a lifestyle business, they can't tell you how hard it is. They've boxed themselves into an inauthentic corner where they have to show up and pretend to be that every day. But it is really sad, and it's almost depressing to talk to those individuals behind the scenes and find out just how hard it is. And my message to them is, look, it's amazing what you've been able to do. You're a unicorn. You're doing far more than I've ever seen anybody accomplish, and you're still not making it work. Why? I don't know, but I know that I could never make it work. I don't have all the capacities to do 100 jobs at once. I don't have the ability to be everything for everybody. I need to have the humility to recognize I need a great team if I want to win in business.
And you mentioned the solo entrepreneurs who start with a great idea, or perhaps they have a product or even a skill set that has value and that people appreciate the value. However, that's not enough to ensure that the business succeeds as a business. Instead of, hey, look at me, aren't I great? And yes, the entrepreneur, any business owner needs to be sending the message that a positive message about their business, because there's irony there that they need to appear successful even when they're not as successful as they'd like to be. And where do you see that conflict showing up? What are the signals that you notice when you see a person like that?
Well, I stay far away from people like that, George, to be honest with you. You know, we got our program, right? Our podcast, Vision Pros Live, and it's one of the greatest filtration processes for us. It's what we call our combine. And so the NFL and the NBA has this too. I learned through helping small businesses in San Antonio, and not to pick on my hometown. I mean, this can be true of pretty much any city that's out there. Well, if you go into the local YMCA and you try to recruit professional basketball players, you're not going to find any. It's not going to happen. And that could be viewed as an elitist mentality, right? That's what the society would then want to label you. Well, if you're going street to street, B2B, knocking on these doors, trying to find business owners who are actually playing ball at an elite level, you're not going to find it. And I found that the hard way. Most of them will hire you for a very quick, cheap pay. They will ask you to hit your metrics, and maximum, they'll give you a 3-month runway. And even if you do pretty well on the build-up process, they're going to turn around and blame you for bringing bad leads. Almost every agency goes through this process as they churn and burn most of the clients that they have. Well, I realized how unethical it was, in my opinion, as somebody who's an expert of marketing, to not bring the business owners I'm working with, bring that to their attention and say, no, we got to stop this. This is not how you win at an elite level. We need to look at, well, how do you win at elite level? Back to the sports analogy of the combines and Vision Pros. When we have somebody come on our podcast and they come in with a fear-based mindset, what does it look like? So, how many downloads do you guys have? I've been on 200 podcasts already. Why do I need to do a pre-show? George, you're trying not to laugh because you know those feelings. Well, I got a book and I really need to get more attention on this book that's out there. My book's the best thing since sliced bread, but you only have 3 reviews on your book. How could it possibly be that great if your mom didn't even leave a review for it? Okay, I don't like to say that to people. Why? Because I get crucified if I'm honest with everyday people about the realities they're facing. I don't even try to help them see that. Why? Because again, I get crucified. So we will politely find a way to either help them realize our show is not a great show for them, or we will look at their vision from a very small holistic perspective, enough to inspire them to try to be as great as they can be. But if they don't want feedback, they don't want to be accountable, they don't want to be responsible for the process, and we can see about their brand just how shoddy the brand is. We have a 12-step checklist process for that. Then we end up thanking them for their time, honoring the simple vision that they blessed us with and moving on as fast as possible from those individuals. What we're looking for are the visionaries who have love at their core. They got to truly show that they love their market and who they're serving. And you can feel that about somebody. We've got to see that they have patience baked into what they do. And there's ways that we test and we look for that. We got to see that they're persistent. That's important. If they're not persistently proactive about working with us and wanting to participate in our programs, I don't want to work with people who are lazy. It ain't happening. And then they've got to be consistent and reliable. Consistency. Do their web pages reflect the same essence of how they talk to us? If I go to their social media feeds, do their social media feeds reflect somebody who's consistent in how they show up with the world? Do they treat people who are successful differently than they treat people who are just named Harry or just named Jackson? We got a team of 5 podcast hosts. Sometimes people come in and in subtle ways devalue or put down my team members or my executive assistant, and they get a little bit haughty with her. Well, if that's how you treat her, I'm sure that you probably treat other people just as poorly. Why? Because she's from the Philippines? Why? Because her name's not Jackson? You know, what is it about it doesn't matter to me. If that's how somebody shows up and somebody acts like they have a superior posture to anybody involved in my processes, we don't want to work with that type of an individual. So reliability too is something we test for. So the NBA and the NFL does this too. It's called a combine. And before every year, before the new season starts, they put all the prospects from Europe and other places, they put all the prospects from college into a grueling process of assessing how high do they jump? How fast do they run? You know, they do x-rays, they do MRIs to see everything. They have these doctors meet with them. There's so many things. How fast do they run the 40? How good are their hands? How good is their dribbling, I guess, in basketball? There's so many things that happen. And that process protects the entities from working with people who will not be qualified to be in the league. We are not an everyday league as a company at First Class Business. That's why we called it First Class. We set a standard for ourselves to work in a completely different type of environment. And as Patrick Lencioni outlines in the 5 dysfunctions of a team, most people are used to being part of dysfunctional teams. We want to build championship level teams. The only way we can do that is if we find people who are either already operating at a championship level, which is about 2% of companies in the world, or we find people who are humbly willing to finally say, you know what? I'm kind of sick of doing this the way that all the gurus talk about. I'm kind of sick of the Inc. 5000, the Inc. magazine articles that say 7 steps to quick success, or Forbes articles written by people who have one of 2 objectives. One, they're either a journalist who makes close to minimum wage and they have no idea how to run a business. Or 2, it's a business owner who wrote an article. And why did they write the article? Because they want to sell something. In the article, they've got something else to sell, and they know that most people want something that's simple, they want something that's easy, or they want something that feels incredibly exciting. I go against the grain on all 3 of those.
The name of your business is First Class Business. I'm guessing there's more than one purpose in that name. What might those purposes be?
As I mentioned, one, it's a filtration process. Right. Don't get me wrong, George, I would have been a millionaire far faster had I named our brand hypergrowthmarketing.com. Right. Just get people excited and hyped and, let's provide fast growth quickly. But let's make sure we don't say we're get rich quick company. What? Like that? You either are or you aren't. And there's I shouldn't say that. There's so many business owners out there who don't think they're subscribing to get rich quick mentalities, but their actions speak louder than their words. First class business means that we literally cannot provide a second class service. Our clients won't accept it. You go into a fine dining establishment, right? Reservation oriented restaurant. You cannot provide the same level of service that McDonald's crappy kiosks provide. You have to provide service at a new level. You don't go into that market on accident and say, well, we're going to have white tablecloths, but we're going to really suck at our service. Right. That doesn't happen. And so our hospitality skills, which are predominantly driven by one of my first startups, Restaurant Connect. We were a fine dining and full service restaurant software platform. Still are. I mean, it still exists, but COVID did crush the heck out of us. It was all the restaurants had to cancel operations. So when we were working with the Masters Tournament in Augusta, all 7 restaurants, my job was to train them on their hospitality and how they receive people and how they use the software to enhance the already tremendous processes they had in terms of taking care of their clients. The Kiawah Island Golf Resort, same thing. Kiawah Island Golf Resort had 7 restaurants on their property. And the restaurants, when we started working with them, did not have great communication with the hotel itself, the resort. They had systems that were separate. So we integrated our software system to where the front desk could have access to booking reservations for the sake of their patrons. They could check and see what availability looked like at all the different restaurants. They could print itineraries out for their guests. So the guests didn't just have their daily itinerary being, whether they're playing golf or staying or using the spa, but now they had access to whatever was going on from a restaurant perspective as well. Again, how does that relate? Because at First Class Business, I want to have that level of service for all of my clients. And I want to work with clients and business owners out there that want to provide top level service to their individuals. What happens when you do that? You create, thank you, Ken Blanchard, raving fans. You create real loyalty, and you can create a long-term business based on phenomenal relationships. And that takes a certain amount of dedication to really paying attention to what's best for your clients and customers.
How do we recognize when we're dealing with a first-class business?
There's a feeling that's going to happen, right? If you were to have fun and play with, have fun. I have a strange sense of fun, George. Call on the phone, call up a number of different spas in your local community, or in a bigger city, perhaps. And from the moment they answer the phone, if they're a first-class entity, you will feel yourself start to melt with the way that their tone and their cadence set the stage. This is Jackson with a lovely spa. How can I help you today? Right? Versus, hello, versus, oh, this is Jackson. How can I help you? Jackson, lovely spa. Right? There's so many tones and cadences. We can really pick up on it in super simple ways. How intentional is the entity being with how they present their message? It's not enough to just have the script. You got to have the tone, the cadence. You got to really care. So that's number one. Number two, bigger entities. Local entities, shouldn't get a pass either. What does the tone and cadence look like in social media? That's one way you can kind of tell. The website, though, I guess, again, I'm going to go for the elite level of looking at this. If I want to know if a business is truly scaling and growing or not, one simple truth. I go to their website and I look to see if they have a page that says join our team or a process for careers. If they don't have a vision for who their people are and how much they care about their own people that they're supposed to care for 24/7, if they don't have a process for highlighting where the growth of the company is going, I already know they're in shambles. I already know they've got a limited vision because they didn't even think through the people who are supposed to take care of their customers. So again, 99% of companies don't even have that. Go to the website, look for careers tab. There's no careers, no culture, vision, no mission statements. The list goes on, but everybody's trying to focus on these funnels for lead generation and getting people to opt in and getting people to buy. And it's no wonder 96% of businesses lose within 10 years. We have to get out of that mentality and out of that rat race and look at how do we honor and respect all of the people that we're really supposed to serve as the heroes of our brands. Otherwise, we've lost sight of what's most important.
If we want to consider ourselves a first-class business in the eyes of our customers and clients, so what I heard there is we first need to be a first-class team leader employer.
Absolutely.
And if we're from the outside and we see how the company treats its people, that'll tell us they don't tell us a lot more truth than they probably want us to know.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And we can't give them a pass. You can't. The doctor cannot poke my side to find out if I'm hurting. And I go, and if I've got an appendicitis going on, right? He can't say, oh, I didn't mean to hurt you. Sorry, I won't touch you again. And to send me on my way, right? If you want to really know, for whatever reason, if somebody is great at what they do or not, then you have to be willing to dig into the things that they may feel uncomfortable with. And who doesn't react and act like a big pain, or act like you're, get pretentious about, well, you don't have the right to know that. We're private companies. We don't have to share that. The people who don't react and that treat you as a humane individual, they're the best leaders. They're the ones who are going to say, it's a fantastic question. Let's talk about that. They're going to want to sit down and have the conversation. They don't want to talk about the hard truths, the ugly, the nasty, the unknowns. They're hiding something most of the time.
I recall when I worked for a large corporation, and this was decades ago, when the values phenomenon was going through, when the consultants were coming around saying, you got to have values, And they were doing this survey.
I'm still saying it. Just so you know, that's my flag. That's my banner.
And they were going to do a survey on what our values are. And I thought, well, gee, that's real easy to figure out what our values are. How do we make decisions? Because it's our values that determine our decisions. And they came up with this what they thought was fabulous statement. We value our people. And I thought, no, you don't. Look how you treat us. No, you don't. Ask me. I'll tell you. It's not your value. I can see how we make decisions about people. We didn't treat people as people. We treated them as positions. In fact, what's that phrase that some corporations used? Oh, FTEs. They're not people. They're FTEs. Full-time equivalents. That's the phrase we got from HR. Oh, your full-time equivalent, you now need to reduce that. So we're not getting rid of people. We're simply reducing FTEs. Sounds kinder, less brutal than saying just cut people.
Yikes.
And so, yes, we definitely can look at the corporation. And interesting, on the impression, I recently called my insurance agency to change insurance on a car, and I had to go through this. Oh, I don't know. And maybe it was only 5 minutes, but 5 minutes of talking to a damn machine.
Oh, I can't do that, man.
And so by the time the person comes on to talk to me, I'm in a foul mood.
Yep, exactly.
I'm impatient, and this stupid machine is asking me questions. I could have told you right off the bat what I wanted, not answer these questions. And so that agency is certainly went way down in my value, and I'm considering changing real soon.
Yep, exactly. And all these young companies, all these inexperienced entrepreneurs are getting addicted to the ChatGPT fad. And the idea of putting an artificial intelligence bot in place you're playing with a nuclear fire. You're not just playing with fire. You're playing with a nuclear fire. If you don't have the strategy down, if you don't understand how to communicate at the absolute top levels of hospitality, you're just going to burn your business faster. That's all that's going to happen. If you put a car on a track that's going to run off of a cliff, right? That's the track path, and that's the path that most of these companies are on. You just highlighted it, George. These are companies that are multi-billion-dollar companies making this mistake. They have some of the smartest minds in the world, and they're still screwing it up, right? Why would we have the audacity as small business owners to think that we can outthink thousands of other people? I don't have that level of ego. I know it sounds like I do. No, I get great team members who know how to do the right things and that care about people enough, and I get out of their way and I support them as best I can each day. But if you take that car and you put it on that track and you put something like an artificial intelligence in it, you're putting octane, you're putting NOS. All you're doing is skyrocketing your process to go off the cliff. You're just going to go off the cliff faster. So you can't irresponsibly use a tool to fuel your success if you do not know the direction that you're supposed to go in order to drive success. You first have to know the direction and work with people who have been there, done that, and gone through the process of looking at what all needs to be put into place in order to make this journey one that is safe, one that is efficient, one that is going to help our dreams come true. I know it sounds so simple. I think it is pretty simple, but so is doing 100 push-ups per day, 100 sit-ups, and 10,000 steps. Most of us would be really healthy if we would just stick to that simple process. Yet we love fads. We love trying new things. We love buying stupid stuff. We love trying to get around hard work.
And as I point out often, simple isn't easy. It's not the same.
No, it's not. And simple and complex are in harmony with each other. Most people also don't want to hear that. Look at it this way. My 3-year-old can draw a human body. And my doctor has been studying the human body for 30 years. And he would tell you he's just scratching the surface of understanding it. So when we try to decouple and again, overgeneralize truths and look at things from a one angle, like one perspective, we end up limiting our abilities to see truth fully. We end up limiting our abilities to be able to manage and grow prosperously. So how do we then move forward? I think faith is a big part of that equation. Faith is an action in our beliefs. And do you have beliefs that are toxic, or do you have beliefs that are virtuous? I would recommend leaning into all of the virtuous beliefs that you have if you want to have a successful life.
I think another deep discussion on its own there, Jackson, and appreciate that. And so let's come back to what I think you called the importance of the process, having the system in place. And typically when we have a system, we are told, or we come to believe, that we want to make it as efficient as possible because that reduces time and costs. Yet efficiency isn't always the best for our clients, our customers' experience. So how do we balance those?
Yeah, maybe it is, maybe it's not. Again, I think the biggest thing that most entrepreneurs listening can realize is you got to get out of your own way, right? You've got to have that billionaire mindset of, I'm not the one who's going to solve this problem. It is going to be a team, right? This thing is bigger than me. There's more people that need to be involved. How do I empower people to come in? Take a billionaire, for example, who wants to address polio or wants to jump on the bandwagon for how do we solve COVID problems, or how do we get involved in, entertainment industry, whether it's buying a sports team, etc. They don't come in with the mindset that they're going to solve all the problems. The first thing that I look for is who. Simon Sinek almost got it right. And I love Simon Sinek, but start with why. I would have never cared about the why and starting with the why if I didn't first care about him as a leader and believe in him as a leader. I say start with who. Who can I get that's going to help me solve this problem? Who can I get that's going to, how many people do I need? Do I need 100 people? Do I need 1,000? Do I need 2? I usually don't know. Maybe you should get the first few people you trust and then ask them to present that idea. I'm not going to say, I just need 3 people to build the Hyperloop. No, if I can get Elon Musk's attention, I'm then going to ask Elon Musk, how many people do we need for the Hyperloop? He's going to have a far more calculated answer than I am about that. So who is the first part of the infrastructure? And that's what we really focused on today, was recognizing the who's. Because if you can't recognize the who, you're going to end up bringing people in who are, I got the best guy from Nike. I got this guy from Home Depot. I got this guy who's an executive at such and such company. And I hear it all the time. And I'm like, oh no, don't use a posturing title. If you have to tell somebody you're a doctor, you're a really crappy doctor. Or if you have to tell somebody you work at such and such place to prove your value, you're probably really bad at what you do and probably really insecure in your own capabilities. So there's the who. And then next is that why. Right? Why are we doing what we're doing? And, if you hire an executive for sales and their goal is to make as much money as humanly possible, it doesn't matter what we do to do so, but you want to serve and help people, and they want to be one call closing sharks, you may want to check out of that relationship. There's great salespeople out there who sell with service in mind and who understand the value of helping people. And so again, you got to ask them, like, what's your why? What do you do? Why are you doing what you do? Well, man, I really want to come in here, represent first-class business, because I'm really sick of seeing my clients always fail. No matter how many times I represent agencies and how good the agency seems, I'm tired of people not winning. That's a very different attitude than somebody who comes in ready to just sell because I want to put my kids through college. I want a better car. I want a third house. I want a yacht. How many times are you going to say the word I in 2 minutes? That's a selfish reality. So who, why, and then after that, after you've got the who and the why, you bring in the right who's, they're going to figure out the how and the what's. I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to pretend I'm going to be the best course builder in the world. I don't have to pretend I'm going to launch some fancy podcast by myself and that it's, going to be all because of what I did. No, I need to get out of the way so my team can do the who and the what, but I also need to be willing to pick up the shovel and dig in the trenches more than my team. Because if I'm not willing to do that, it's only a matter of time before they look at you as the couch potato who's just riding their work. So we got to be inspiring as leaders too. We got to be willing to put in the work with our teams, inspire them. And it's amazing what happens when we do that, because then all of a sudden we're like an octopus with all these different hands moving forward, our vision, bringing it to life. Take care of your arms, take care of all those people. They'll take care of your people, and you show up and take care of them too. We've got to take care of people if we want to win. At least if I want to win the way I want to win, I want to feel good about it.
And that's a critical statement there, that you want to win the way that you want to win. You don't want to win just for the sake of winning. It's more than just that.
There's a big difference between Martin Luther King and Hitler. Both of them were very successful.
True.
I want to feel more like Martin Luther King. I want to feel more like somebody who really, really enjoyed the process and helped people. And was it an easier path? No, it wasn't. It was still very hard. We know what happened in Martin Luther King scenario, but I want to feel my purpose in this life. And part of the filling the purpose for me, service, it's taking care of others. So if we were to do that as entrepreneurs, if we want to do that as entrepreneurs, I don't know how to do it the solopreneur way. The only way I know how to do that is to find team members who really believe in the visions that we set out, clarify it to help them understand and gain what I call speed of certainty. Thank you, Dr. Todd Snyder, for teaching me about speed of certainty. And then, defining our primary objectives that we can all get. There's so many paths. There's so many little pieces to it, George, that I know we're out of time. But one of the biggest pieces is what your podcast stands for. And that's having intentionality with your message, understanding how to communicate and not apologizing. If my topics and concepts, they don't apply to 90% of people who listened today, that's okay. They're not going to work with me. They can work with the next person. But if it does apply for 10% or 1%, if one person implements this even without me, I'm going to be a very happy man that I did this. And if we happen to have some that want to work with us, fantastic. That's even better. And I'll be excited about that. I'm just going to welcome the abundance of the opportunity. And thank you for doing the podcast that you do, because I can't be the only voice talking about this. We need more leaders who are helping individuals understand the power and the value of great communication.
Powerful message. Jackson, for those that are interested, you have a resource at your website called the Power Launch Webinar. Who's that for, and what will they get from that?
That's a great question. Most of you will get very bored and worn out by that, and that's intentional. I know that. That is for those people who value books like The 1 Minute Manager, Raving Fans, The Effective Executive, Tribal Leadership, 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Peak by Chip Conley. All the business books that I've read throughout my life and all of the startups that I've helped with growth. I mean, I think 6, if I'm correct, it's 6 of my 8 startups that I've been involved with that have been around more than 10 years, they're still in business today. That's like 80 something percent. Could I be lucky? Yes. There's not enough variables to know. We'll know when I'm at like 600, right? If I ever decide to get there. My point with that is I've gotten to see scale a lot of different times and in a lot of different circumstances with small businesses, and paid very close attention to brands like Tesla and brands like Facebook and brands like Instagram, and how is it that they go about scaling, and Netflix. I'm kind of obsessive when it comes to optimization and efficiency. You talked about it earlier. I would never sacrifice efficiency as a whole. Of course, I would choose love first if I was ever, put in a juxtaposition where I could only have one or the other. But usually we make excuses to not be efficient, and to not get the right things done. Usually it's our own selfishness. There's something else getting in the way other than the variable that we blame. And so with Power Launch, it's a 2.5 hour webinar. Well, The Effective Executive, I have read this book too many times, and pull it out and reference it all the time. I've spent way more than 2.5 hours on this book. Most people I recommend the book to never read it. Most people who read the book never implement the processes. Why? It's hard. It is elite level work. Most of you are not going to want to do it. Power Launch is no different. Yes, we can help businesses within 45 to 180 days drive $20,000 in new revenues for their brands. But they have to be willing to do the hard work. They have to be willing to work with teams. They have to be willing to be assessed so we can understand their strengths and their opportunities, but also the weaknesses and the threats that they usually want to hide from the world. They've got to be as vulnerable as we are and as real as we are about where they're at. Otherwise, we cannot help them. So if anybody who does listen to this gets intrigued and attracted and wants to go in and try that, you can all have free access to the infrastructure as somebody who listens to George's podcast. I do not give that out lightly because it's scary. The world goes in there and says, oh my gosh, 55 hours worth of hard work. And it scares them and they think they can do it themselves. If you think you can do it yourself, you won't be able to. But if you want to use it, you want access to it, my goal is to provide absolute transparency as well to the world. Here's what you can do if you want to do this on your own or do this with your own team. And George, again, anybody who wants any type of system from us, we're happy to give any of our paid for systems away for free to your audience.
Wow, that's a generous offer. And the key message that I hear in there is that it's important to have strong processes and a strong team, even if you think you are a solopreneur.
I've never met one that's successful, George.
We need those teams. Powerful message to end on. My guest today is Jackson Calame, reminding you that to get out of your own way. If you like what you heard, tell your friends and post your 5-star review on Apple Podcasts because that helps more listeners find us. Come back every week for more practical insights to help you deliver your intended message. I'm your host, George Torok.